Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome to part 1 of our Unity 6 tutorial series. In this video, we'll be starting from scratch to create a Mario-like game. If you're new to Unity, that's completely fine. We'll go through everything step by step. I'll show you how to set up UnityHub, install the editor, create a new project, and get familiar with the Unity interface. By the end of this video, you'll have a basic scene set up and understand the tools we'll use to build our game. I've added the link to UnityHub in the description, so go ahead and download it, then install it on your system. Once you've got UnityHub installed, open it up. Now your screen might look slightly different from mine since I already have some projects here. But don't worry if yours is blank, that's totally fine. Next, head over to the Installs tab. Here you'll see all the Unity editors currently installed on your device. To install Unity 6, click on the Install Editor button. From the list, select Unity 6, which should be at the top, and click Install. You'll need to accept some license agreements, and after that, the installation will start. It might take some time, but once it's done, you'll have Unity 6 ready to go. Once you have the editor set up, go to the Projects tab in UnityHub and click on New Project. Here you'll see a list of templates to choose from. Since we're making a 2D game, select the Universal 2D Core template. On the right, you'll see an option to name your project. I'll call mine Mario Project, but you can name it whatever you like. Leave the rest of the settings as they are and click Create Project. Now keep in mind, the first time you open the Unity editor, it might take a little while to load. So be patient, grab a coffee or relax for a moment while it sets up. When the editor opens, you might feel a bit overwhelmed with all the options on the screen, especially if you're a beginner. But don't worry, that's why I'm here. I'll guide you through everything you need to know, step by step, to help you feel comfortable working with Unity. On the left side of the Unity editor, we have the hierarchy. This panel lists all the objects in your current scene. By default, we're inside a sample scene, and you'll notice two objects here, Global Light 2D and Main Camera. The Global Light 2D is simply a 2D light source that brightens up the entire scene, and the main camera represents what the player will see in the actual game when it's running. In the middle, we have the scene view. This is where you'll build your game. You can also switch to the game view to see what the player will see. Click on any object in the hierarchy, and on the right side, you'll see the inspector. This is where you can edit the properties of the selected object from the scene or hierarchy. You can even change the name of the object directly from the inspector. Under the transform section, you'll find key properties like position, rotation, and scale, each with X, Y, and Z directions. Adjusting these will move, rotate, or resize the object in your scene. For example, if you select the main camera, you'll notice a lot of additional options in the inspector. Inside the environment settings, you'll find the background color. This sets the color of the sky in your game. Switch to the game view, and you'll see how this background color matches the sky in your scene. If I change the background color here, the sky color in the game updates instantly. Later, we can use this feature to create effects like a day and night cycle. At the bottom of the editor, we have the project window. You can think of this as a file explorer for your game. This is where all your assets, folders, and scripts will live as you build your project. By default, inside the assets folder, you'll see a few folders and files already there. For example, there's a scenes folder, a settings folder, and some other files. We don't need to worry about these right now, so we'll explore them later when needed. Inside the scenes folder, you'll find the sample scene. This is the same scene we've been talking about in the hierarchy. It's the one we're currently working in. The settings folder contains options that we won't deal with for now, so we can ignore that for the moment. Now back to the assets folder. Here we can create our own folders to keep everything organized. Just right click anywhere in the assets folder, go to create and select folder. You'll also notice a bunch of other options in the menu. Don't worry if this seems confusing for now, we'll cover everything step by step as we progress through the project. By the end, it will all make sense. In the scene view, you can interact with your objects and navigate around easily. Left click and drag to select multiple objects in the scene. Scroll to zoom in and out for a closer or wider view of your workspace. These basic controls will help you move around and manage your scene efficiently. Let's create the foundation of our game, the ground and the player. In the hierarchy, right click anywhere and go to 2D objects. You'll also see an option for 3D objects, but since we're focusing on a 2D game, we'll ignore the 3D options for now. From the 2D objects menu, select Sprite and then choose Square. This will create a square sprite in both the scene view and the hierarchy. Let's rename this square to ground. To do this, you can right click on the square's name in the hierarchy and choose rename, or you can press F2 while the square is selected. Type ground as a new name. Now that we have our ground object, let's learn how to adjust its size. In the scene view, click on the edge of the square and drag it. you'll notice that this action increases the size of the square from that point. This works on either side, giving you precise control over its dimensions. On the left side of the editor, you'll notice several tools that allow you to interact with objects in the scene. Now that you're familiar with the basic tools, let's position our ground object. Select the rect tool from the toolbar. Click and drag the ground object from its center and move it to the bottom of the scene. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned, but make sure it's at the bottom of the game area. Next, we'll adjust its size to cover the bottom of the screen. Using the rect tool, click and drag the side edges of the ground object to stretch it horizontally, making it a flat platform that spans the entire bottom of the game area. This ground will serve as the base for our player to stand on. Now in the inspector, you can quickly change the color of the ground. Let's make it a brown-like color for now. We'll learn how to add textures later on. After selecting your color, go to the game tab. It's looking perfect. Now let's return to the scene view. Now create another square sprite, right click and go to 2D object sprite and select the square. Rename it to player. Position it above the ground on the left side and change its color too. I will go with an orange color and see how it's looking. Perfect, this will be our main character. Let's make the player interact with the world using physics. With the player selected, go to Inspector, click Add Component and search for BoxCollider 2D. This ensures the player can collide with other objects. Next, add a Rigidbody 2D. This gives the player gravity and other physical properties. We'll dive deeper into these settings in later tutorials. Now, hit the play button at the top. You'll see the player fall through the ground. Why? Because the ground doesn't have a collider yet. Next, select the ground object, click Add Component and search for BoxCollider 2D. Select it to add the component. Once that's done, hit the play button. The player now stays on the ground as expected. And that's it for this part. We've set up our project, explored the Unity editor, and built the foundation for our game. In the next part, we'll dive into adding movement and interactions for our player. Make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. See you in the next tutorial.